Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the September 15th, 2020 meeting of the Hillsborough County Land Use Hearing Officer. My name is James Scarola, and I'll be the hearing officer for the morning. What we'll do to get things kicked off here this morning is first, you'll hear me discuss with staff any changes to our agenda, if there are any. And right after that, I'll go into a brief review of procedures, which you can find in the Land Development Code. We'll go through a quick set of review of the procedures, and then we'll move right on into it. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Tom Hisney, the Development Services Department. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Mr. Scarola. To my left is Carmen Mason with Development Services. Also, we are going to be joined virtually by Cameron Clark of the County Attorney's Office. We have no changes to the agenda, and we have no published withdrawals or continuances.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, so the hearing generally is going to be informal. Questioning will be confined as closely as possible to the scope of direct testimony, and what that means simply is that when you come forward, you'll be discussing directly with me. As the hearing officer, I'll call and question witnesses as necessary and appropriate, and I'll decide all questions on procedure. Irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious evidence is going to be excluded. Any part of your evidence may be received in written form, and all of your testimony today is going to be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used for the purpose of supplementing or explaining other evidence, but it won't be sufficient in itself to support a finding, unless it would be admissible over objections in a civil action. So having said that, the basic procedure we're going to use today is, first I'm going to turn, Mr. Hisney will introduce each petition, and then the county staff will give a quick summary of their departmental findings, and they'll have about 5 minutes to do that. Then I'm going to ask the applicant and any of their witnesses to come forward, and Land Development Code prescribes up to 15 minutes for that testimony. After that, I'll then look for any proponents. Proponents are not the applicant again. Instead, they may be other parties who are supporting the petition, and there'll be a time segment of up to 15 minutes set aside for that as well. At that point, I'll ask for any opposition. If there are opponents in the audience, similarly, a total time of up to 15 minutes will be set aside. And if there happen to be a lot of people, if there's not a principal speaker that's been designated, I'm going to just divide the time up the best I can. At that point, I'll turn back to staff and see if there's any changes to the staff reports based on the testimony or any comments. And lastly, the applicant has the opportunity for a final rebuttal, and that's for a period of 5 minutes. That's the basic process we're going to go through, but a couple of details for you. When you come up to the podium, there's a microphone there, bring it down close to you, and always, when you go to speak, say your name and address first. Name and address first. If for whatever reasons you end up sitting down and you have to come back up again, since there's a record being taken today, repeat your name before you go to speak, so the record knows who's speaking. No need to go back through the address thing, but let's go ahead and say your name if you come back up forward again. Oh. Pardon me for just one moment. Yeah. Okay. A couple of minutes. All right, a little technical problem, so a brief glitch. Give us just a few minutes and we'll go right back to it.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing.
Thank you for everyone for standing by while we deal with these technical issues. And we're ready.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go back to where we were, which just finished explaining the importance of saying your name when you go to speak into the record. When you come up the first time, name and address. Always speak clearly into the microphone. And when you're all done, if you'll step around to this side where I'm pointing, there's a sign-in sheet. Can you hold up the sign-in sheet? And you'll need to sign in right there. And that'll conclude your testimony. If there's any evidence to be presented, you can hand it in over there as well. All right, so at this point, we have our Assistant County Attorney, Mr. Cameron Clark, available to provide you information with respect to your rights to appeal decisions made resulting from today's hearing. Good morning, Mr. Clark.
Good morning, Mr. Scarola. Good morning. My name is Cameron Clark. I'm an Assistant County Attorney. This Land Use Hearing Officer public hearing is for variance and special use requests. This is the time for interested parties to present evidence and testimony. Once the hearing officer has closed a case, the record of that case is also closed and no new evidence regarding that case may be submitted thereafter. Any decision by the hearing officer may be appealed to the Land Use Appeals Board. Should a decision of the hearing officer be appealed, the evidence and testimony that is presented at this public hearing today shall be the only evidence that is subject to review by the Appeals Board. In reaching a final decision on petitions, the Appeals Board will only consider the decision of the hearing officer and the record that is made at this public hearing. If an appeal is filed, the Appeals Board hearing shall consist of oral argument by the party appealing the decision, by county staff, and by any interveners, each of whom may be represented by legal counsel. The following shall have standing to appeal a decision of the hearing officer or to intervene in an appeal. 1 is the applicant, and 2 is anyone who appeared before the hearing officer, presented testimony or other evidence, and is adversely affected by the decision of the hearing officer. It is the role of the county attorney's office to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is allowed before the appeals board that was not presented to the hearing officer at today's hearing. The county attorney will recommend that the appeals board disregard evidence or testimony that is outside the record made at today's public hearing. Any evidence that is presented to the appeals board that is outside the record created at today's public hearing could jeopardize the legality of the appeals board decision, and the presenter of that evidence could hurt their own cause. The safest course of action then is for you to write down any comments that you make today and to repeat those comments to the appeals board. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Clark. So ladies and gentlemen, if you plan on giving any testimony or evidence today, I'd like you to rise with me now and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
You do.
Okay, thanks for all that. And Mr. Hisney, I think we're ready for our first petition.
Okay, our first case is item B1, the vested rights extension application 20-1034. Applicant's representative is Michael Brooks, Shepard and Roca. Colleen Marshall will present a brief staff report. Okay.
Good morning, Colleen Marshall, Development Services. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
The petitioner is seeking an extension of vested rights permits 92-1104 and 92-1276. The vested rights permit were most recently extended through vested rights extension 18-1111 on October 8th, 2018. A previous request to combine the vested rights permits under one extension as the projects were unified development was granted under vested rights extension 12-0686. The approval for VRE 18-1111 expired on July 6, 2020. As the request for this vested rights extension was filed on July 2nd, 2020, the request was filed in a timely manner.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Brooks?
Yes, for the record, Michael Brooks, 606 Madison Avenue, with Brooks, Shepard, and Rocha. Good morning, Mr. Hearing Officer.
Morning.
Morning, other members of county staff. I would say the dais, I guess that's a dais. Mr. Squirrel, you have heard extensions of this vested right before. Procedurally, it is somewhat obtuse, but we still don't have a formal determination from the county attorney's office, and until that time, I don't think it's appropriate to ask legal counsel for the project to render opinions as to the status of the vested right. So for that reason, we filed another extension. There are roughly 40 building permits that were part of that application. I'm going to leave you also with, or the clerk with some documentation regarding ongoing land development activity permits for phase 3, which include an offsite force main, the remaining lots back on what I think you would know is the old lift station site, back where the Dickman property begins. And we believe that all those permits collectively meet the intent of presumptive vesting and good faith continuation of development. So with that, I will end my presentation to answer any questions you have.
I don't have any, Mr. Brooks, but thank you for that. Anybody else that needs to speak to VRE 201034? Okay. Seeing none. And the evidence handed in, we'll go ahead and conclude vested rights 201034.
All right, that concludes section B of the agenda. We have no fee waiver request or reconsideration request, which takes us to section E of today's agenda, site development variances. First item is E1, application number 20-0804. The applicant is Blue Water Wash LLC. They're requesting a variance and encroach into a wetland setback. Staff findings will be presented by Carla Shelton.
Good morning. This is Carla Shelton with Development Services. The applicant is requesting a variance from a 30-foot wetlands conservation area setback requirement. The applicant's specific request, as shown on the site plan submitted on June 22nd, 2020, is to allow for construction within the 30-foot wetland conservation area setback. For LDC section 4.01.07.B.4, no filling, excavating, or placement of permanent structures or other impervious surfaces shall be allowed within a required 30-foot wetland conservation area setback. The applicant requests construction of an asphalt drive, retaining wall, and a portion of a structure within the 30-foot wetland conservation area setback. The applicant requests a 15-foot reduction of the setback to allow for a setback of 15 feet. That's all from staff.
Thank you, Carla. And the applicant, please, for variance 2804. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Kroll. For the record, my name is Peter Bensa. I'm an AICP certified planner with Avid Group. I have been sworn in. My office address is 2300 Perla Road, Palm Harbor, Florida. Also with me today is Dr. Dale Merriman. He's the environmental scientist on the project, and I'm going to give a presentation. If you have any questions for him, he'll speak. Otherwise, he's just here to provide support as needed. The site is a 0.98 acre parcel. It's a vacant commercial lot that's zone PD. Much of the development has already been built. This is one of the remaining vacant lots. The request that's before you is to do a 1,800 square foot setback encroachment to reduce the wetland setback from 30 feet to 15 feet in a small portion of the area, which is the area shown in green. And I apologize, I actually got that upside down. It's the area shown in green on the plan. These are blow-ups of sheet 3 of the 4-sheet plan set that we submitted. And I'll leave these as part of the evidence, but they are part of the record already. The green area is the 1,000 square foot wetland encroachment area. We're proposing to compensate that with 1,307 square foot of compensation area shown in purple. And we provided typical cross sections of what that compensation area would look like. I'm going to go in order of C, B, and A briefly, and then if you have any questions, we can go into them in more detail. This is cross section C, which is down towards the southern section. The idea is to leave 15 feet of undisturbed buffer from the dark line is the wetland line. Leave the first 15 feet undisturbed, then provide for compensation at existing grade within most of the, or actually in all of the next 15 feet. This is where the compensation would be provided. Then we'll start a retaining wall and slope up to the pavement and building area from there, so that at that area, we're providing minimal impact. We're actually improving by doing compensation. In section B, as you go more northerly on the site, again, we'll leave 15 feet of undisturbed. And at that point, we will provide a retaining wall at a 4-to-1 slope up to the back of the building. And then the last cross section, section A, again, leaves a 15-foot undisturbed buffer area. Then we start a 4-to-1 slope and then a retaining wall to start the parking or the drive aisle that's there. With that, if you have any questions for us, we're more than happy to answer them.
Maybe we can get Mr. Merriman to make a quick statement about the quality of the impact area versus the quality of the compensation.
Good morning, Mr. Scroll. The area that we're talking about, which is a little over 1,000 square feet, is about
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dale Merriman, 10408 Bloomingdale Avenue, Riverview. And I'm with Merriman Environmental. So the area that we're talking about impacting is approximately 85% nuisance exotics, which is pretty much the entire area on this side of the wetland. So those nuisance exotics will, of course, be removed off site. There are a few isolated little oaks that are in the 5-inch range, DBH. So it's really not an area that is a quality habitat. To compensate, we use the stem wall, which, as you know, can be expensive, but it cuts down on the amount of impact that we would have. Subsequently, we have designed the compensation area, which is an extra 300 feet. And with that, we're using the standard shrubs understory to compensate for it. So everything is going to be on the proper on centers, proper container size, and everything will be planted according to directions. We are planning on removing any exotics in that area that we're going to do the compensation in. Thank you.
Thank you for the testimony.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anything else from the applicant?
No, we're fine. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Merriman, did you sign in over here with the clerk? Thank you. Okay, is there anybody here today in support of this request? Anybody in support? Okay, seeing none, is there any opposition to this request? Okay, I see none. Anything else from Development Services?
Carla, any comments?
Nothing more.
It was variance 2804.
All right, that concludes section E of the agenda. We'll now move to section F, the signed variance request. First case is item F1, application 20-0740. The applicant is Creative Sign Design. The request is for a sign variance. Staff findings will be presented by Kim King.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Kim King, Development Services.
Ms. King, can you enable your camera, please?
I have tried to, and it's not pulling it up. says we detected that you connected a new audio device, which I haven't.
Second here. Mr. Clark, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
But Kim King's having a problem with video. If I remember, that's a bit of an issue, isn't it?
It would generally be in this instance, though. I can say when we were proceeding at the outset and we were doing sound checks, I could see Kim at that time. I don't know what's happened since then, but I could see Kim at that time, and she was sworn. And also, I work with her on a near daily basis, and that's her speaking. So I think we're okay to proceed. She was, as I said, and I'm kind of confused this from yesterday, but I'm about 100% certain that I saw Kim earlier on video, so I'm not sure what technically just went wrong, but I think we're okay to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. Kim, go right ahead.
Kimberly King, Development Services. The applicant is requesting an additional ground sign and a variance to the overall height. This project is for Gator Ford, located at 11780 Tampa Gateway Boulevard. There was an approval by the Board of Sign Appeals on August 2nd, 2002, allowing the applicant to have a pole sign at 510 square feet under appeal number 02-1047. A request to increase the sign height to 60.7 feet was approved by the Land Use Hearing Officer on May 10th, 2002, under Variance 02-0547. That's the existing sign on the property. Per section 7.03.00.C.2 A and B of the Land Development Code allows one ground sign at 100 square feet per side, 200 square feet total. Per section 7.03.00.C.1A allows a maximum height of 30 feet when located adjacent to an arterial road. Variance number 1, the applicant is requesting a variance for an additional ground sign at 396.6 square feet per side, 793 square feet in total sign area. Variance number 2, the applicant is requesting to increase the height of the sign 30 feet for an overall height of 60 feet. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I don't have any, Kim, but thank you for the testimony. And by the way, we could see you just fine after you got going. So thanks. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer and staff. Jim Porter with the Ackerman Law Firm, 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa, representing the applicant. I have a packet for you and the clerk.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. I'm going to spend a moment just orienting you to the site, and then I'll go into the argument. As Ms. King, there we go. As Ms. King said, this property was originally rezoned in 2002, and there was also a sign variance at that time, given it was rezoned to PD. This is I-4. This is the Mango Road overpass. I-75 is just right out of sight here. This is the actual site. You have Lazy Days here, and you have a room to go here. So you have a series of commercial uses that you would typically see on an interstate, both in terms of use and in terms of scale. They're very large uses. Back here, it's sort of vacant property. Ms. King talked about the existing sign. This was the subject of the variance in 2002, and it's an existing sign that is 60 feet in height and of a size that's appropriate for the site. This is also a flag on site, and it just gives you a sense of proportion and scale because it is on the interstate, and it's a very busy and congested part of I-4 because of all the other roads nearby. These are our immediate neighbors. You can see that you have a Bob Evans sign Then you have a sign here with an electronic reader board. Those are directly adjacent to the subject property. This sort of illustrates the essence of the argument of why we need the variance. This is taken from I-4 headed towards the site. So you're going east. This is, let's see, this is the Mango overpass. And you can see our flag, I think, over there, but you can't really see the sign. So what happens, the essential reason for the variance is.
Mr. Porter, point out the flag.
Barely see the flag.
Okay, but it's there, huh? All
And
right.
so the problem for the driving public is, and the reason the variance is needed, is that you don't see the signage, you don't see the property until it's almost too late to make the exit. This is exit 10 off of I-4, and it just creates a safety hazard, quite frankly, for the driving public. The Gator Ford was not the original applicant who did the rezoning, but since they acquired the property, they've determined that it's just not working with the existing signage, and that's the reason for it. In your packet, there's a very comprehensive narrative, as well as sort of arguments for each criteria of the variance. I'm not going to go through those, they're there. I'd ask you to pay particular attention to criteria number 1, because there's some good information in that. But I did want to supplement that with a few comments. The property is a large tract, it's over 17 acres, and it has 1,600 linear feet along I-4, which is really, in sign terms, a huge amount. Typically, sign dimensions are determined by how many linear feet you have. This is just a very large amount. And as I said, because it's on I-4, the kind of uses surrounding it are the typical uses. They're bigger than normal, and they're more intense commercial uses than you would see the Lady Days RV, the rooms to go. It's important that you notice that. So it's just, this property is just not readily visible to drivers coming from east or from west, and it creates problems with trying to figure out where to exit. So the signage would definitely help that. The property immediately adjacent to the subject property, the Bob Evans and the other one with the reader board, has signs of similar height and use. And so this would sort of provide some equity, allowing this property to have the same type of visibility. No other properties will be harmed by this. There's no residential nearby. You can see in the back, there's a lot of vacant property. And again, the scale of the property and the scale of the sign are appropriate for the area. I want to go over the purpose of the sign code, which you're very familiar with, but it's important for the record. Section 7.00.02 outlines the purpose and intent of the sign regulations. Sign regulations are to promote the health, safety, and general welfare by lessening hazards to pedestrian and vehicular traffic, preserving property values by preventing unsightly and detrimental signs that would detract from the aesthetic appeal of the county and lead to economic decline and blight. The granting of variance is necessary for the public safety that I described and to ensure the property values of the subject property. As I said at the outset, Gator Ford has determined that the current signage is not working and is creating an economic problem for them as well. So allowing the variance will both provide for public safety and satisfy the other provisions of the sign regulations that I described. This is a new sign. It's not in reaction to a code enforcement violation or any other legal act. And the granting of the variance satisfies the intent of the LDC to ensure the continued viability of the property. I'll close by saying the variance is needed because of the topography of the site, the situation of the property along a busy and confusing segment of I-4. The public simply cannot adequately see and process the property as it is. The additional sign will enhance public safety and will not negatively impact anyone else. We respectfully ask for your approval.
Okay, Mr. Porter, I have a couple of questions for you. First, I couldn't clearly discern where this new sign was going.
Sure.
And didn't see a depiction of what it was going to look like. Can you do both of those things?
I can show you where it's going to go. Let's see. If you see the red dot, it will be along here.
Okay, so it's in the, it's next to the test track area, between the building and the test track
Correct.
area, basically. What is that area? Is that a parking lot?
There's cars parked there, yeah, currently.
Okay, where's the existing sign?
Existing sign is not
Approximately.
shown on here. It's approximately right around here.
So you want to keep the existing sign
Correct,
and then have that sign?
correct. That's the intent.
And one doesn't conflict with the other?
No, as far as the client is concerned and Ford is concerned, the Ford logo is needed. And then the additional sign would allow for Gator Ford and be an electronic sign that would be enhancing the signage and again, create more visibility for people attempting to access the site.
And do you have a depiction of what the sign?
I
would
do
look
not
like?
know.
Okay. So put up the depiction of the exit 10 location.
Let's see, which one? This is the one you're referring to?
Yes. Okay, I think when you showed that, you said, and I couldn't see, the location of the existing sign.
No, that was the flag,
Right.
right?
But, so you can't see the
You
existing
can't
sign.
see the existing sign,
But the existing sign's 60 feet.
correct?
The proposed sign is how tall?
I think it'll be 60 feet as well. I think it'll be closer though, so I think it'll, hopefully you'll be able to see it in a better fashion than currently is there.
How tall is the flag?
The flag looks approximately the same height. I don't have a measurement on that, that's just sort of eyeballing it.
Well, you see where I'm headed with this. It's hard to see what benefit you get out of it.
Yeah, well, I think this was showing it from going west, I think from the coming east, which I don't have a photograph of. I
So
think
when you're
it's in your
coming from the
packet.
east,
Sorry.
when you're coming from the east, you recall there's the big group of trees.
Let's see, yeah.
But right before the site as you're headed westbound.
Right,
Okay. You pass that group of trees. Now, within that group of trees, it seems to me like you couldn't see anything because they're tall. They're big trees and they're right on the side of I-4, right?
Mhm.
You pass it, and then it's only 2,000 feet from that point, roughly 2,000 feet to the
Mhm.
exit. Okay? You can see the Ford sign from that location. So what would be the need? It doesn't seem to be, I mean, across the way, you could certainly argue, hey, we don't have a display, although I don't see where you're going to get it. And on the other side, you could say, well, we do have a display and it's displayed as soon as you could possibly get to a point where you could see it. Maybe you could talk to that.
yeah, I think again, the proposed sign is going to be an electronic sign, and so I think that will be able to be seen better than a static sign that just says Ford. And so I think that's the intent, and the sign will be larger than the existing sign as well. It's 793 square feet as opposed to 510 square feet. So the analysis that was done by the company was that this sign would allow for greater visibility and provide for an opportunity for people to see the site earlier. And I think the electronic piece of that, like the neighbors have next door, will enhance that. So I think that's sort of the difference between the existing sign. It's going to be larger and it's going to be electronic.
Is there any consideration given to taking the Ford component off of the existing sign and putting it in an aggregate?
I think that's a company decision. I'm not authorized to talk about that, but I think this was sort of, they felt that they needed this from a business perspective. And that, and again, I think the county has to be careful about getting into what, goes on the signs, but I think that would be a very, very large sign as opposed to two. So if you combine the two, the existing sign is over 500 feet, and this would be 700, almost 800 feet. So that would be a very big sign. I think that would, if you combine them, as I think you're suggesting, that would be out of character, I think, with sort of signage is already out there.
Okay,
But another sign of.
But understand, it doesn't matter to me what's on the sign.
Right.
The reason I asked the question is you have a variance in for an additional sign.
Correct. No, and I think, again, to your point, I think the variance would allow a bigger sign and electronic and make it more visible. And I guess the point I was trying to make, instead of combining them and having one large sign, which I think would be out of scale, adding another sign of about the same size but slightly bigger would be in character with not only what's on the property, but within the surrounding area.
Anything else, Mr. Porter?
That's it.
All right, thank you for your
Thank you, Mr.
testimony.
Hearing Officer.
Okay. All right, is there anybody here today in support of this request? I see none. Is there any
Can you
opposition?
sign in, please?
Is there any opposition to this request? Okay, don't see any either. With that, we're going to move to 2740.
Jamie? Mr. Scarola?
F2, application.
Go ahead, Ms. King.
Mr. Scarola, I wanted to share, I had a diagram of where the sign location was supposed to be and also the sign diagram that I had in the file. And I was going to try and share it with you if you wanted to
Ms.
see.
King, one second. All right, I had closed it. I'm going to reopen the case so that Ms. King can get her comments on the record. Mr. Porter, you'll have an opportunity to address any comments. Go ahead, Ms. King.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. This is a diagram that was provided to me by Ms. Healy. And it shows the location of the Gator Ford, and where C3 is located, that's where it's showing that the proposed sign was going to be. I don't know if that location has changed since I've discussed this with her. And then this also shows the what the proposed sign is supposed to look like. And then as you see on the bottom, it shows where the existing Ford sign is along with the flagpole.
One second to absorb that. Kim, what's the intent of the bottom picture? It looks like someone's gone through some effort to analyze something. I'm not sure what it is. Ah,
I guess to give you an example of if you were on I-4, where the sign is
One second.
located
Let her
in
finish.
relation to the other.
Could you repeat that?
I said I believe it's showing where if you're traveling down I-4, where the new sign would be proposed in relation to the site.
well, I got to admit, I'm a little confused because if you notice in the top picture, you don't see the trees because you're not quite there yet they're further to the east. And in the bottom picture, you do see the trees, but the sign appears to be in front of the trees. Unless, of course, those trees are in the parking lot somewhere and I think that's what it is. They're not the I-4 trees.
Yeah, I think those must be the trees, like you said, behind the parking.
Okay, Kim, thanks. Mr. Porter?
So just two comments. One, the top graphic is part of the packet I submitted to you, and it's the site of the sign is in the same location as I demonstrated, but this is a better graphic. And I'll refer you to in the criteria that we talked about in the written application. The explanation under number 1 really goes into sort of what that was trying to graphically display too. And I think, as an engineer, I think you'll understand that what they're talking about better than I could even explain it, but it's in your packet. And I think as you review it, that will probably make more sense. But the location of the sign as Kim described it is accurate and similar to what I showed you, but this is a better graphic and it's in your packet.
All right, thank you for
Any
that.
further comments?
Kim, just want to make sure you got everything you need in the record.
Yes, that was all.
Anything else, Mr. Porter?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Hernell, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, we'll close variance 2786. I'm sorry, that's
All right.
2740.
All right, our next case is item F2, application 20-0786. The applicant is Tommy's Express Car Wash. The request is for a sign variance. Staff findings will be presented by Kim King.
Kim King Development Services. The applicant is requesting a setback variance for a monument sign, and this project is for Tommy's Car Wash, located at 3825 West Waters Avenue. Per section 7.03.00 C1C of the Land Development Code requires a monument sign at 4 feet high, a 15-foot setback from the front property line. And for every 1 foot you increase the height, you must increase the setback 1 foot. The applicant is requesting a variance of 8 feet reducing the setback to 10 feet from the front property line.
Thank you, Kim. All right, and the applicant, please. Good morning.
My name's Lance Loy, and
Excuse me, can you get in the microphone a little better and say your name?
go higher. Lance Loy, 5305 Moonshell Drive in Apollo Beach, Florida. We've been pushed back a couple times, so I'm not sure exactly what all photos and information you have, but I do have packets for everybody.
Okay.
I guess the first thing that I wanted to address, let me see, how does this,
Yeah, you just got to stay in the microphone when you speak.
yeah. Oh, okay, it goes under there. First thing I wanted to address was the shape of the property. The property is developed in a way where you have, the actual property only is a 70-foot frontage. You can see where the existing Wawa sign is located.
No, point it out for me, so I can really see it.
And then where we're currently asking for the monument sign to be moved, which would be equal to the setback of the Wawa sign. The Wawa sign is actually in front of part of the building. There's an easement, I guess, that goes back, and the Wawa location's actually here behind. Doesn't have any frontage other than this right here on the waters. They access the Wawa station from the entrance here. So right now the sign's sitting back, this location here, 15 feet back. There's also a tower box right here. So the sign's kind of being blocked by that. This is a picture of the proposed sign. So basically what we're doing, the existing sign right now is this section right here. We're just looking at raising it 3 feet and moving it 5 feet closer to the property line. This photo shows you the sign as existing, and then you'll see the Wawa sign here behind it.
Okay, that helps a lot.
I can't lick my fingers to get the pages. This is a shot from the other direction. This is a shot from the other direction. You can see the Wawa sign. You can see the foundation that's put underneath. That foundation's 3 foot high.
And that is the south edge of that foundation is at 10 feet from the
Correct.
right of way?
Correct.
And that's where you propose to be as well?
Correct. We're planning to be equal to the setback of the Wawa sign. This kind of gives you down the property line, and you can see where the property line is located. The sign for the car wash is located right over here by the electric box.
Wait, say what you just said one more time?
This is the property line,
Oh, okay.
okay?
Gotcha.
So you can see where the Wawa sign
So
is.
that's the west property line,
Correct.
all right?
So this is the property line, this is the Wawa sign, and currently, it wasn't in this picture, but the current sign is located right in here.
Does that mean the current sign is off-site?
No, this is the property line. The Wawa's property is this way.
Gotcha.
Car wash is that way.
Okay.
This kind of gives you an idea of where their sign is located in comparison to where the electric box is.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I'm not sure whether or not you had these in your packet because we were pushed back a couple different times. But a couple of the points that I'd like to make is that the Wawa sign is almost right in front of the building, which identifies Wawa, not really the car wash. That's a shared driveway. The Wawa sign was approved for additional square footage with an earlier variance because of they don't have that much frontage on the road itself. They do have the option of putting up a pole sign with the same 10-foot, but if they put up a pole sign, it's going to block part of Wawa's sign and vice versa, coming the other direction. So by raising the sign up to 3 feet, the equal height of the existing foundation, it'll give them clearance that they can see the sign and not interfere with their neighbor. Do you have any questions?
I think I understand it. Thank you, sir. Anything else from you?
No, sir, that's it.
All right. Make sure you sign in over here. Is there anybody here today in support of this request? Okay. Hearing none, is there any opposition to the request? Kim, anything else from you on this one?
No, nothing further.
It's 2786.
That concludes section F of the agenda. Takes us to section G, which are the general variances. First case is item G1, application 20-0612. The applicant is Brandy Chestang. The request is a variance to accessory structure requirements. Staff findings will be presented by Tanya Chapilla.
Good morning, Tanya Chapella, Development Services. The applicant is requesting 2 variances to accommodate an existing accessory structure on property zone AS1. Accessory structures greater than 15 feet in height must meet principal building setbacks. According to the applicant, the subject structure is 30 feet, 8 inches in height. A minimum rear yard setback of 50 feet is required in the AS1 district. The applicant requests a 39.85-foot reduction to the required setback to allow a rear setback of 10.15 feet. For the Land Development Code, Section 61104, accessory structures cannot occupy more than 20% of the required rear yard. The applicant requests an increase of 15% in the permitted required rear yard coverage to allow a coverage of 35%. I have no findings, and I'd be glad to answer your questions.
Don't think I have any yet, but thank you for that. And the applicant, please, for variance 2612. Morning.
Good morning. Brandy Chestang, 5212 Sebastian Close Road, Plant City, Florida.
Thank you.
I'm going to allow my contractor, Anna Small, and my other half to speak on my behalf today.
Thank you. Morning.
Good morning. Anna Small, American Building Concepts, 17923 Owen Drive, Hudson, Florida. And we had just brought one letter. We didn't have any instructions on what we would have to bring or show. But we have a letter from one of their neighbors who does not object to having them allowed to have the variance that it's because the building is over the 15-foot allowance, which at the time of construction, the owners did not know that would be a requirement. They were
Is
told.
that the neighbor to the south?
Who's this guy? It's from David Fry at 5211 Joseph Close Road.
That's good to know, but is it the one behind the rear
Oh,
yard?
he says, I reside directly next to them on the east side of their property.
East side.
Yeah.
All right. How about the neighbor to the south?
You have anything else from? No other, oh, do you? You just state your name and your address.
Stephen Woosley, 5212 Sebastian Close Road, Plant City, Florida. I have a photo of the building.
Can't do it on the phone.
There's no one to the left of us, no one to the right. Our neighbor directly behind us, which is Steve Steve's last name?
Uh,
Our neighbor that's directly behind us, he has no problems with it. His only objection was we should have built it 10 feet taller and 100 feet longer so no one could see his home. So
Okay,
that was his only complaint.
all right, thank you.
So there's no one to the left or right of us, and it really can't even be seen from the road.
Okay. Who wants to give a quick piece of history of that structure and what's going on with it? How it got there in the first place, where it is in planning?
Oh, originally, when it was constructed,
Which was when?
the company that constructed it,
Which was when?
I can't hear him.
Oh, he says, when was it built?
This was back in 2016, I believe.
Okay.
We were told by them that it fell under agricultural guidelines and that we could put it, pretty much where we wanted. So we took their word for it. And then after it was already constructed and built, we found all of this out through code enforcement. Then immediately we wanted to become compliant, and we were, constructing our home, which is on the same piece of property. So immediately we said, hey, we need to make this correct and figure this out. So we didn't know.
Okay, understood. I
And
just
when-
needed to know that.
Originally, when it was built, we didn't know this. It was built in the wetland setback line, which EPC came out, redelineated the wetlands, and it is no longer in the wetland setback line. So we've been very proactive to trying to correct this so we can close out our construction of our home.
Is that where you're at with the home now?
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Could we turn in this letter? But we only have one copy, but could we turn this letter in?
You certainly can, and you can also, all of you will need to sign in there as well. All right, and with respect to this variance application, is there anybody today in support of this request? Anybody in support? Okay, hearing none, is there anybody in opposition to this request? Okay, Ms. Chapella, is there anything else you need to add to this?
No, I don't have anything to add.
With that, we're going to close variance 20-0612.
All right, our next case is item G2, application 20-0700. The applicant is Carlos and Mayra Savignon. They're requesting a variance to lot development standards. Staff findings will be presented by Steve Beachy.
Mr. Beachy, your mic is muted.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, Steve Beachy, Development Services. The applicant is requesting a variance to accommodate an existing attached carport garage on a single-family lot zoned RSC 9. The required side yard setback in the RSC 9 district is 5 feet. The applicant requests a 3.3-foot reduction to the required side yard setback to allow a setback of 1.7 feet from the east side of the lot line. In the findings, we noted that the applicant provided information via the survey about a setback encroachment for an accessory dwelling on the property that was approved as part of a variance request in 2001. This variance request does not address the encroachments of this structure. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay, I think I'm good, but thank you, Mr. Beachy. And the applicant for variance 20-0700. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Myra Savignon, 6512 Altamonte Drive, Tampa, Florida, 33634. And I'm going to allow Mr. Charlie Bean to talk on my behalf.
Good morning.
Thank you. My name is Charlie Bean. I'm a general contractor.
Mr. Bean, your address, please.
125 West Thomas Street, Tampa 33604. I was retained by Mr. and Mrs. Savignon to present this situation, which is unfortunate. But 20 years ago, they had a request in to build an addition to their home. And it was all done right. It went through the county. Everybody did everything they were supposed to do, except somehow this side setback over there got left off the request and wasn't discovered for 20 years. They thought everything was cool and have lived with it without complaint from anybody until it was discovered just recently when the county was out there researching another petition. Raised it, and rightfully so, it needed to be cleared up because Mr. and Ms. Sauvignon had lived there all this time without complaint from anybody. But the time would come when refinancing or selling their home or something like that would be a problem to them. So they contacted me and asked what to do. I set them, in motion in the process. They followed it completely and been postponed a couple of times because of the situation we're in. But here we are requesting that this setback on the, it would be the east side of their property, be granted to bring everything into conformity with what everybody thought it was.
Okay, thanks for that. I do understand. Tell me this, when you looked at that, the previous work that was done, was that building permit closed out?
Yes.
It was.
Yes, sir.
And approximately what year was that?
2001.
2001. And I'm not quite sure I understood in that testimony. Did you say that this carport was in the application originally? Was it shown to be built or was it not shown to be built?
It was built at the time prior to, it was already there. Prior to the addition and everything, it was there when you bought the place.
Well, so we can't do the back and forth
Oh,
thing.
I'm sorry.
So, well, you can come up in a second, but we need to just do one at a time.
Okay. At any rate, they were under the impression that it was all approved at the same time.
Okay, so that's interesting. So how old is the carport?
20 years.
I'm confused because I thought you said they did the addition 20 years ago, but the carport was already there. Remember to say your name when you call.
My name is Myra again, and this picture shows when I applied for the variance in 2001. As you can see, the carport, it's, let me see, it doesn't look too good.
This needs focusing.
Okay. Okay. That's the sign that we put up in 2001 when we were requesting the variance. And as you see, the carport is already there. So, and to my impression was when we were requesting all the permits to be up to date, that the carport was also included in the variance. But when we finally got the certificate of occupancy for both of the projects, my assumption was that everything was cleared until now that the carport was never added to the variance.
Let's go back to some of my questions. What year was the carport built?
Now I'm gonna say roughly 2000.
Just before
Yes.
the variance?
Yes.
Then you came in for variance?
Yes.
And what was the main context of the variance?
It was because we built the carport without the permit. And those.
And then you later discovered that the carport wasn't in the variance?
Yes, we discovered that recently last year.
Any chance that you have a copy of the variance?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so that I get acquainted with it, flip to the back page for a second. Okay, and go to the front page. Go ahead for the record purposes, say the number of that variance. Just say the variance number such and such. It's at the very top of the page.
Variance number 01-1006-TC.
Okay, and hold on for one moment. Okay, now let's put your site plan back up onto the screen. Survey your site plan. Okay, so that variance referred to a garage turned into an accessory dwelling. Which structure is that? And how was that accessed at the time?
Through here.
Mr. Scroll, this is Cameron Clark. Can I ask you a quick question?
Could you repeat that, Mr. Clark?
I just wanted to ask the hearing officer a quick question. Is Mr. Scrolla? I just wanted to confirm one of two things: either that the materials being shown on the Elmo right now are either part of the record already, or if not, they can of course be added. But we would just need to make sure we have copies of what's presently being shown.
So we'll confirm for Mr. Clark that that site plan is part of the record, correct?
Yes, I turned it.
The variance decision, did you enter that into the record during the application process anywhere?
I'm sorry.
The variance decision that you displayed just a moment ago.
Oh, I turned in copies, yes.
Okay, so Mr. Clark's been confirmed.
Okay,
Those are on the record.
thank you, Mr. Scrolla. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go back to the overhead. Slide it down just a little bit. I'm trying to look for a north arrow. I can't see it from here. Slide it down. Okay. So on the west side of your property, what exists in that area that it says lot 9? Next door to you?
Over here?
No, lot 9, the other side.
This?
Yes.
Those are my neighbors.
Okay, so there's a single family home there.
Yes.
Okay, anything else you need to add into the record? Sir?
Right.
All right, thank you very much. Ma'am, I'm hearing that we don't have a copy of the variance in the record.
Yes, I turned it into Steve Beachy.
Okay, Mr. Beachy?
Mr. Beachy, you're muted.
Okay, there we go. Yes, we saw the we saw the variance request. I just checked the record, and it's not in the record, but I have a copy of it, and I can put that in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Beachy.
Sure.
Okay, anything else, ma'am? All right, thanks for that. Okay, is there anybody here today in support of this request? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the request? Okay, and Mr. Beachy, do you need to add anything to that?
No, I don't believe so.
All right, thanks for that. With that, we'll close variance 20-0700.
Our next application is item G3, application number 20-0766. The applicant is Jose and Milagros Carino. They're requesting a variance to lot development standards, variance to the distance separation requirement for a community residential home type A, and variance to accessory structure requirements. Staff findings will be presented by Steve Beachy.
Good morning, Steve Beachy, Development Services. The applicant is requesting 4 variances. The primary variance is for the community residential home to be located within 1,000 feet of an existing community residential home. And the other 3 variances are essentially cleanup variances that we noticed as we reviewed the survey for the property. I'm going to switch my screen to share my screen. Do you see the screen, the purple graphic?
Yes, we do.
Okay. The existing community residential homes are shown here in black. 2203 Shermont Place is immediately adjacent to the subject parcel of the request. And then there's also an existing community residential home at 704 Overhill Drive, which is 555 linear feet from the subject request, which of course the other one is immediately adjacent, 0 feet. And this shows the 1,000-foot perimeter around the outside of the subject request. The actual request is for a 1,000-foot reduction for the existing home at 2203 Shermont Place, and a 444-foot reduction to the required separation from the existing home at 704 Overhill Drive to allow a 555-foot separation. With regard to the other requests, the variance request, the primary dwelling is the zoning is RC6 in this district, and the applicant requests a 0.4-foot reduction to the required setback for an existing home to allow a 24.6-foot front yard setback. There's also an accessory structure in the rear yard, in the backyard. Request is for a 0.03-foot reduction to the required setback to allow a setback of 2.7 feet from the north side of the lot, and a 0.06-foot reduction to the required setback to allow a setback of 2.4 feet from the west rear lot. I should also note in our findings, the applicant's existing community residential home at 2203 Shermont Place was granted a distance separation waiver in 2017, variance 17-0304, to be located within 1,000 feet of the community residential home at 704 Overhill Drive. That concludes my comments on the bill for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beachy. And the applicant, please, for variance 200766. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Milagros Carreno. Address 2205 Shermont Place, Brandon, Florida 33511.
My name is Jose Carreño, address at 2205 Sherman Place, Brandon, Florida 33511.
Thank you.
Variance 200766. Request is variance to accessory structure, lot development standard, distance separation for a community residential home. Here's a copy of our survey, which shows the distance separation of the shed. 3 feet.
One moment, please. So I'm not seeing that on video. Is that?
Mr. Beachy, can you please stop sharing your screen?
I am trying to locate my, trying to stop sharing it.
That's okay.
Okay, please stand by.
Right ahead.
Okay, so that's our property survey again.
We are requesting to reduce the location from 3 feet to 2.7. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but then also in the front area, the concrete drive was constructed as it is to 24.6. So we're asking to reduce that as well, as Mr. Beachy explained. And then also, I want to discuss a little bit about the distance separation of the community residential home. Like Mr. Beachy mentioned, we did get approved a variance back in 2017. I have a typo, so it's not 170229, it's 0304. We currently own 2203 Sherman Place, so we're right next door. Main reason is because there's a high density population of people seeking places like ours. There was two major, about a year ago, there was two major nursing homes that shut down. So we kept getting phone calls about, if we were expanding, that they needed a more smaller ALFs. So, and when we came to the county, we were told that as long as we keep them separate, meaning that we're not going to put any connections, at least have its own name, own tax ID. It'll be completely separated, but it'll be, tied to us anyways, that it could be possible. So we have no code enforcement right now, citations. We have permits already approved for us to convert the garage into 2 bedrooms with an additional bathroom and a laundry. So we have that already approved waiting. Additional reasons, I wrote down that the land development code approves in a case-by-case basis, providing a method or a way to reduce the required distance. Our community residential home provides excellent service to the elder in a home-like environment at an affordable price in a well-kept and maintained residential area. In addition to that, electrical. Our community residential home is currently providing services to 5 residents, which do not cause any harm to the community electrical. Electricity does go off from time to time, but it's not a problem that comes out from our community residential home. These houses were built back in the 70s. Most of the electricity, it's underground. So in time to time, we are gonna get it, but it's not caused by our community residential home. In fact, we did install a generator, a standby generator that provides consecutive power for 5 days in case we lose power. So we are really taking care of, the well of our residents. Water. As owners, we've never encountered any water or sewer problems. Constructions in our areas will always cause waste to go to our rivers and our lakes. First responders, I wanted to mention that most of the time when we call first responders, which is not often, they're always called in with no siren. We always request, since we are in a community residential area, so not to come with any sirens. There's always a room for cars to drive by. In fact, our community has 2 main entrances and the neighbors can exit using those ways. And I'm gonna provide a picture. Visitors, since March 15th, the governor signed an executive order where visitors were not allowed to visit long-term care facilities nor nursing homes. So since then, only healthcare providers were allowed to visit by appointment and park in our driveway. And we did put up some signs. So here's a copy of our map. As you can see, so Overhill is one of the main roads. And then you have Hartsdale Court, which is another main road. 2203, Brisas del Caribe, that's our community residential home. 2205 is our proposed. Those red triangles are our neighbors that are in support to our request right now. And in case there's any first responders, and people can go through different routes to exit our community. So we're actually not blocking the whole community. There's ways to go outside. Additional reasons, property value. We did hear some neighbors talk about, oh, we're gonna lose their property value. So we've gathered a comparable market analysis from our realtor, and houses are still selling between 235, 245, and I do have a report available. Houses do not lose value, instead they increase because how well kept and maintained we have it. COVID-19, another concern. Some neighbors are concerned that they can get infected by COVID by living next door to our community residential home. That's not correct, and I don't think that's a valid reason. Only because the only way you can get infected is by coming inside the facility without your protective equipment. Okay, and besides of that, some neighbors walk outside with their dogs, they don't even wear a mask, and they don't keep social distancing. Staff in healthcare, our staff and healthcare providers do get tested every 2 weeks, and no staff or residents have tested positive during this pandemic. Lastly, so additional reasons, we've always been in compliance with ACA. ACA is the Agency for Healthcare Administration. We have zero deficiency during our last 2 inspections. We have no complaints. We've always passed our health department inspections, and we have proof of that. During this pandemic, we did get a lot of visitation from the health department, and there was no findings. Everything was kept very sanitized. Addition to that, we have 5-star reviews on Google. Like I said, again, no complaints, and I do have supporting letters and emails from people that live nearby us. In fact, we have an email from the lady that lives right across from 2205 Sherman Place. And the email reads this way: I, Deborah McKaiser, reside at 2206 Sherman Place, which is across from Jose and Milagros Carreno. I do not oppose the property being used for community residential home. I have 2 calls this week asking to see if my property was available for sale. So to me, it is not a concern that the value of the property will go down. We have weekly outages of powers existing prior to the previous residential home in place. Tampa Electric called me and they told me that it was a problem that it was caused by them. The Carrenos has invested a lot of money to keep the property in excellent condition. They should be granted permission to pursue their dream excellent care in their residential home. Since I will not be available to attend this meeting, please consider my statement in this decision. And so this is a picture of our community residential home. I heard one point that it was an eyesore. And I want to ask, do you feel this is an eyesore?
Don't ask.
So just mentioning.
Okay.
We even put up signs letting people know not to park in the driveway in case that was a concern. So just pictures of that. Visitors parking only as well. And I do have some closing statements, but I have some witnesses here with me as well.
Okay.
So I want to present those later.
Thank you. Anything else for now?
No.
All right, thanks for that. Okay, is there anybody here today in support of this request? Is this your witnesses? Sir, would you go over here and, yeah. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good.
My name is Michelle Patrick. I live at 2201 Shermont Place. I'm the corner lot right beside their existing facility. I have no complaints. The young couple, Melanie and Jose, they're always there. They're always attentive. The car issue with the blocking of traffic, they park in front of my home. They don't park no further down past the facility. The emergency staff, whatever, she is right. They never use sirens. They never wake us up. They also park in front of my home because I allow that. And I've had no issues whatsoever. And I really, really agree on them having another home for the people that really need it.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Good morning.
I am Dora Maria Forero. I do not 2204 Sherman Place, Brandon, Florida, 33511. I do have no complaint. As a matter of fact, since they moved there, and the neighborhood looks much better. And I'm happy with them. I say no complaints.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate the comments. Anybody else in support today? Okay, seeing none, I know we had one sign up in opposition. Is there anybody here that needs to speak in opposition that's in the room today? Okay, and online?
We do have one person, but I believe they haven't signed in. They signed up but not checked in.
So, just one last call for Mr. Rabinowitz. Who is not in attendance, virtually or in person. All right, anybody else in the room in opposition to this request? See none. Anything from staff?
Yes, during our review, we engaged the applicant in questions about the operational nature of this home with compared or relative to their existing home. Because as you're aware, a type B home, which would have from 7 to 14 residents, is actually prohibited in the zoning district. And so in discussions with the applicant, they indicated to us, and that you'll find emails and such in the record, that these two homes will operate independently of each other in every way, from licensing, from staffing, and completely separate entities. And I would like the applicant to address on the record and make clear to the hearing officer how these two homes will operate relative with each other, okay?
Well, again, they will be completely separated, so we have to go through the state. We have to install a generator, we have to install the fire sprinklers, create a new name. We have to get.
Pardon me, as a formality, just go ahead and say your name. You went to speak and didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Milagros Carreno,
Yeah.
2205 Sherman Place, Brandon, Florida, 33511. As I was saying, they will be completely separated from each other. They will have his own staff, business name from tax ID purposes, Medicaid provider number. It will be his own entity. So we're requesting the zoning approval for 5 residents. I think it'll be great for us to be able to have that, to be able to serve, continue to serve our community that it's much needed. And that's it. I do have a few closing statements. If
In
we're-
one moment, you can make those closing statements. Mr. Hisney, understanding your comments, is there anything about that testimony that particularly concerns you about it operating like a type B?
No, I mean, it's consistent with what they told us during the review.
Okay, all right, thanks for that. Go ahead, man.
So our community currently holds a waiting list from people that live nearby. And really to sell this home, to buy something in a commercial zone area will be a hardship for us because we couldn't afford to buy in a zoning area, in a commercial zoning area. We really want to keep our rates at an affordable price. Our hope is to continue to provide these services in a safe environmental residential home environment. Our proposed request does not impose any hardship on any of our neighbors, nor would it serve to create any situations where any neighbor's quality of life, property of value, or peaceful coexistence will be negatively affected. Quite the contrary, this proposed request will allow us to become better citizens and service providers into our community that we so want to serve. And our goal is to preserve public health, safety, comfort, and welfare. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. With that, we'll close variance 20-0766.
Okay, our last variance today is item G4. This is application number 20-0803. The applicants are Ryan, Heather, and Robert Heath. The request is a variance to lot development standards, including lot width. Staff findings will be presented by Colleen Marshall.
Good afternoon, or good morning. Colleen Marshall, Development Services. The applicant's requesting a setback variance to accommodate an existing single-family dwelling and variances to the minimum lot width requirements to accommodate a proposed 2-lot subdivision on property zoned ASC1. The applicant's requesting a 0.3-foot reduction to the required side yard setback to allow a 14.7-foot setback from the south property line on the proposed west lot, which would be the flag lot on the submitted plan. The applicant requests a 24.3 foot reduction to the required lot width to allow a lot width of 125.7 for the proposed west lot as measured at the 50-foot front setback line. The applicant requests a 93.78 foot reduction to the required lot width to allow a lot width of 56.22 feet for the proposed east lot as measured at the 50-foot front setback line. I also just want to clarify on the record for the proposed driveway easement that's shown on this survey would not constitute as an access easement that would be excluded from the minimum lot size calculations. Because Wayne Road is a collector road, when the applicant submits for subdivision review, due to transportation driveway spacing criteria for the collector road, the two lots will be required to share one driveway off the road, thus requiring the driveway easement, but they will each have their own access with the flag stick and then the other one being located on Wayne Road. Be happy to answer any questions.
Have any, but thank you, Ms. Marshall. Any applicant? You got to come to the microphone. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Scarola, members of the staff. My name is John Grandoff. My address is Suite 3700 Bank of America Plaza. Before we begin, we have a procedural question I'd like Mr. Scarola to address if I may be heard on that. Or if you prefer, I can reserve my objections to the opposition time of the hearing. But my client has an objection to the application this morning.
I'm losing you, Mr. Grandoff.
Yes.
So you have a procedural question?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
In my opinion, I've prepared a letter. I've delivered it to Mr. Grady, who's delivered it to counsel for the county. In my opinion, this application is out of order because it should be filed as a rezoning and not as a variance. And if you look at the materials in the application, you'll notice it's a request to reduce lot width, which is only within the province of the county commission. In a rezoning scenario, you do not have authority to grant variances as to lot width, and they're fairly extreme in this case. You've heard textbook cases of variances this morning that involve hardship and changes to side setbacks, even height in the case of some of the signs this morning. This is a completely different animal, and in so many words, they're in the right church but in the wrong pew. This needs to be a rezoning. The property is ASC 1, which has a minimum lot width, and they're asking you to reduce the limit on lot width. And I submit respectively, you don't have authority to do so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Grandoff. Mr. Clark, are you available?
I'm here, sir.
Concern?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Scrolla?
I can.
We can hear you.
Yes, Mr. Grandoff helpfully provided his letter around 3:30 yesterday afternoon. I have had a chance to read it. I don't have any concerns about this application going forward. There are distinctions between nonconformities and variances. An approved variance is not a nonconformity. The county's processed many applications on this of this sort. Mr. Hisnay can cite the relevant sections if you'd like those details.
And I got most of that. Mr. Hisnay, can you quote me the section of the Land Development Code that provides for dimensional variances in lots?
Yeah, and if you look at the letter that was submitted by Mr. Grandoff, it draws attention to, first of all, it kind of centers on nonconformity regulations and what's a nonconformity or not. So generally speaking, in the code, when it talks about nonconformities in general, it says it may exist lot structures, uses of land, characters of land which were lawful before this code was adopted or amended, but which would be prohibited, regulated, restricted under the terms of this code. Then specifically a nonconforming lot is a nonconforming lot to include lots, tracts, or parcels which due to size, dimension, or other characteristics do not comply with the provisions of this code. So the provisions of this code indeed include minimum lot width standards, lot size standards, setbacks, et cetera, for lots. But the provisions of this code also include provisions for variances. And so if something is approved through a variance, which is a provision of this code, then it is indeed not a non-conforming, whatever it is. It's not a non-conforming structure. It's not a non-conforming lot. Now, to his last comment that you don't have the authority to approve a lot with variance, section 110401 of the code says variance from strict compliance with requirements of this code is provided for in this part. If the standards in this part are met, a variance to the requirements of this code other than land use, prospective floor area ratio, or FAR, or density or required review process shall be granted to the applicant pursuant to the procedures prescribed below. So the code absolutely permits a variance to lot width, lot size, as long as it doesn't create a density issue. And in this case, it does not. Also, it does not create nonconformities because, again, the nonconformities are things that are not in accordance with the provisions of this code. And then lastly, as you well know from your long experience, the county variances of this sort are extremely common, are very common. Variances for the various different development requirements and dimensional requirements of the code, hundreds more have been approved. And it would be obviously very inconsistent with the code to be able to provide for variances if that wasn't in fact creating a nonconformity, since, as Mr. Randolph points out in his letter, general intent of the regulations is for nonconformities to go away. So yes, a granting of a variance does not create a nonconformity, because this lot will be in conformance with the provisions of this code if the variance is approved.
So Mr. Hisney, in short, would you agree that if the nonconformity does not exist, so today it's a conforming lot, and an applicant comes in and requests a variance, and the variance would take it into, but for the variance, into the category that it would be nonconforming, but the variance is requested first. At the time the variance is granted, it never goes through any time where it is nonconforming.
Correct. If a variance is granted to, let's say, subdivide a lot that is presently conforming, but when they want to reduce and cut it into two lots and they want to reduce the minimum lot width by 5 feet, if that's approved, and then they go through our subdivision review process, that is not a non-conforming lot.
Mr. Randolph, I'll give you another 2 minutes.
Okay, I disagree with Mr. Hisney, and in the findings from the staff, it says staff determined the parcel which does not meet.
Mr. Randolph, say your name.
John Randolph. The first staff finding says that the staff determined that the parcel which does not meet the minimum lot width requirement of ASC 1 was created prior to July 26, 1989, and therefore is a legal non-conforming lot. If this is correct, then what's the county commission for to handle rezonings for parcels that do not meet the existing zoning and are therefore non-conforming? They're increasing the degree of nonconformity. They need to file a PD application for this.
How does it increase the degree of nonconformity if the variance is granted?
If the variance is granted, well, it's a cardinal rule of nonconforming lots. You may not increase the degree of nonconformity. They're eventually supposed to sunset and conform with the overlying zoning district, ASC 1. They're increasing nonconforming, and one of them, they're reducing it, a reduction of lot width by 125 feet, and they're reducing another one by 56 feet.
But it's not the same lot. It would be for two different lots.
But they're non-conforming in terms of width. If I have a zoning district that's a 60-foot zoning district, and I want to build.
You said, but they're non-conforming in terms of width. They don't exist today. They, if received a variance, would never have crossed that non-conforming threshold.
You don't have power to reduce the width of a lot. That can only be done through the county commission on a rezoning.
I don't have power to reduce the width of a lot?
No.
Despite that it's been done, I don't know, in my career, maybe 1,000.
That's not,
2,000.
the law doesn't say it's been done before, so we get to do it again.
Okay.
A variance is to allow a side yard to be built. The woman that had the house for 20 years, they discovered finally they were in the 15-foot setback. You have the power to grant relief on that for unique situations of the property as it relates to the building to be constructed.
Does the comprehensive plan ever specify a lot width?
No, lot width is controlled by zoning.
Okay, so could we rule out that it would not affect in terms of the comprehensive plan?
No, they could rezone as long as they're consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so then it's down to the land development code. And again, this issue of if granted a variance, it would never have crossed the threshold of nonconformity.
Well, then you would be permitting it. I'm saying you cannot even entertain the application because they're asking to reduce the lot width. The better process is to rezone the property.
All right, thank you, Mr. Randolph.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah. Yes, please sign in. And also, the applicant's going to get an opportunity to speak on this if they need to enter anything. So if you'd like, this is purely about the process. So if you have a comment, go ahead. Come up to the microphone.
Sorry. We have a PowerPoint
Name and
presentation.
address.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Kristen Mella on behalf of Barnett, Bolt, Kirk, Long, Coachwood, and Foster. The address of the property is 18262 Wayne Road in Odessa, Florida, owned by the Heath family. We represent the Heath family, and today we are here with Ryan Heath, one of the owners of the property.
Okay, having said that, any comments on this question of procedure?
We would like to get to that after the presentation, if that's acceptable.
So the issue on procedure has been taken up.
Okay.
So I think now's the time, if you have any comments about Mr. Randolph or Mr. Hisney's positions, or with respect to the Assistant County Attorney, let me know now, because I'm going to make a decision as to whether we're going to hear this.
Absolutely. Give me one moment. So we have to submit into the record. I'm sorry, are you able to zoom in on this? This is a correspondence from one of our land use partners discussing the procedural issues, basically indicating that the applicant is availing itself. I'm sorry, it's on the, not on the PowerPoint, it's on this document that I'm holding here. Is there a way I
Do
can?
you have more than one copy?
I have several copies. Would you like me to bring it to you?
Please, and then enter one into the record. Mr. Hisney?
Ms. Mello, there's also an overhead projector available right next to the podium so that you can project it up if you wish.
Would you mind giving me a moment? You can organize yourself in the interim. And as I go through, has Mr. Randolph been provided a copy of this yet?
Not yet, I have one right here.
And I don't suppose we have a method of letting Mr. Clark, well, I guess he can see it. Mr. Clark, if you're looking at this in general and you need a page turn, just let us know.
I can see it, Mr. Scrolla. Mr. Scroll, are you waiting on me?
Could you repeat that, Mr. Clark?
I'm just finding out the hearing officer's waiting on me.
Mr. Clark, I just want to make sure you knew it was up there and that if you needed a page turn, that you could
Yeah,
ask.
I can see it. I can see it. It'd probably be, this is the first time I've seen this, so I would have been best if it was emailed to me, but I mean, I can see it on the screen.
The answer to that is if you got the Mr. Grandolph's request at 3:30 yesterday afternoon, this
Yes,
looks like
yes.
it may have taken some time to put together.
Sure. And it looks like it's dated today too, so no, I hadn't seen it until now. Okay, if there's another page, you can turn it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Oh, okay.
Mr. Hearing Officer, I've reviewed this as well as I can on the screen. I mean, I can read the words, so it'd be nice to have a direct copy of this into the file. Again, I'm comfortable with the application going forward. Through board ordinance, that being the LDC, the board adopted procedures through which variances may be granted. Only certain types of variances are prohibited. The review standard for variances that is authorized the hearing officers to review are separate and distinct from zoning procedures. I'm comfortable with the application go forward, just as you noted, countless of these applications have already gone forward.
Okay. So this application does not request a change in land use, prospective floor area, density, or other required review process consistent with section 110401 of the Land Development Code. I'm going to rule that the application is in order and it can proceed. So with that, the floor is all yours. And please, one more time, name.
Thank you, absolutely. My name is Kristen Mella on behalf of Barnett, Bolt, Kirk, Longwood, Coach, and Foster. We're here for 18262 Wayne Road, Odessa, Florida, variance 0803, owned by the Heath family. And today we're here with Ryan Heath, one of the owners of the property, who's just going to come up and kind of give a very brief synopsis of why we are even seeking a variance.
Good morning.
Morning. My name is Ryan Heath. I own the property at 18262 Wayne Road, Odessa, Florida, 33556. We're looking for the variance so we can increase the interior square footage of an accessory structure on the property so I can move my father onto the property as he's getting older. Hopefully he's not watching online right now and heard me say that. And so we're just following the process and we're hoping you'll agree to the variance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Ready? This is Kristen Mell again for the record. So this is an aerial view of the property. You can see the Heath property is outlined in red. It's zoned as ASC1, and the property, which recently surveyed when the Heaths purchased the property in 2019, is 2.96 acres. Just to give you an idea of the property shape, definitely very unique. And then to show you the structures on the property, we have the main structure, and then we have the accessory structure. And the accessory structure is the focus of why we are seeking a variance and why we are seeking a lot split in connection with the certified parcel. So this is the current accessory structure on the property, built by the prior owner in 2016 or 2017. And this is what we're seeking to do, which is close in the upstairs and close in the garage. Just to give you a side-by-side view of the goal in this variance process. So in order to do that, we are seeking to split the lot into 2 lots. The first lot shown here is the rectangular lot in the front. This would still be zoned as ASC1. It would be 1 acre in size. And this is the location of what is now the accessory structure, and this is a non-flag lot. And here we have the other property, the other proposed lot also would still be zoned as ASC1, 1.96 acres in size. It's shown on the survey, it's about 1.46 once you take out the wetlands and the flag portion of the lot, but it's still well above 1 acre in size. And this shows it's the flag lot. So the Land Development Code provides for ASC1 that we have to meet these certain criteria. We meet almost all these requirements. The property, both of them will be 1 acre or more in size, but the width of the property is very unique in that it is narrow. We're also seeking a slight variation to the side setback for the main structure. So here we have the east property again, the non-flag lot, and the circled portion shows you where we are seeking a variance. So the zoomed in portion there shows you it's 150 feet requirement. Ours would be 56.22, so the variation would be 93.78. So we're seeking a reduction to allow for a lot width of 56.22 feet.
Will I have these exhibits?
Correct. I will give you a copy of the PowerPoint, and also these surveys are already into the record as well, but I have copies of the PowerPoint to submit into the record.
Yeah, I think the exhibit that's up right now is part of the PowerPoint, right?
Yep, I will have that for you. Okay, and now here we have the west property. This is the flag lot. And as you can see, it's further back because the flag portion does not count. It's where the property starts meeting, becomes wide and meets the rest of the property. And here we have the zoom in, which shows 150 feet, the requirement. And it would be 125.7 feet. So we're seeking a variation of 24.3 feet. So we're requesting a lot width of 25.7 feet. And on that same lot, the flag lot, we're also seeking a variance because the side setback, the main structure, which was built before the Land Development Code, was put at 14.7 feet. And so we're seeking a variation of 0.3 feet from the typical 15-foot setback requirement. So again, just to show you from the Land Development Code, this was just like the previous slide. Those are the 2 items that we are seeking. The lot width for the non-flag and the flag lot, and for the flag lot, just that minor 0.3 variation for the side setback. So here we are with the variance application. The lot dimension requirements that were just covered are not excluded from the county's variance granting power. And the Land Development Code also identifies 6 criteria that are to be considered when determining if a variance should be granted. So the following are criteria with the applicant's responses. Also included are going to be provisions from the Land Development Code, as well as some sections from the 2016 hearing, which the prior owner of the property had successfully obtained a variance in order to build that accessory structure. So the first, explain how this alleged hardship or practical difficulty is unique and singular to this property and is not common with the other properties in the area. So as you saw previously, the property is very unique in its shape. It sufficiently meets the area, height, bulk, and placement regulations, with the exception of lot width. So here we are showing on the plat. The property looks like it used to be wider, but before the Land Development Code and way before the applicant became the owner of the property became narrower in size, as shown on the right. And in our 2016 hearing, again, seeking something different, but looking at the same criteria, the hearing officer did find that this property is very unique in its shape, and that it's very large to meet all the ASC requirements, yet it's not conforming just because of its frontage. Second criteria, describe how the literal requirements of Land Development Code would deprive you of the rights commonly enjoyed with properties in the same district under the terms of the Land Development Code. So in addition to this property, a lot of the properties along Wayne Road are very unique in that some of them have sufficient lot widths to have a lot split without need of a variance, while others do not. The subject property is one that does not have sufficient lot width. There are also other properties that do not have a sufficient width for a lot split, and several of those adjacent to the subject property have either obtained a lot split through a variance or some other mechanism. And here is a section in the code, which specifically, not in the code, but it references the code. It's the community development plan, which discusses how this area is just very unique as far as the shape and the issues that this property has. So here we're going to show the lot splits of the neighboring parcels. In red again is the Heath property. And shown in yellow are neighboring properties that have undergone some form of lot split, whether it's through variance or some other process, in order to have a flag lot and that smaller part in the front that looks very similar to our proposed lots. So this is the first, neighbor 1, very similar setup. Neighbor 2, very similar setup. Neighbor 3, very similar setup. And in the 2016 hearing, it was determined that because of the uniqueness of the property, that the literal interpretation of the land development code would deprive the applicant of their rights that other property owners in the area do enjoy. Number 3, explain how the variance, if allowed, would not substantially interfere with or injure the rights of others. So the variance would allow the applicants to use the property in the same manner that the other property owners use, whether that be because their property is wide enough to split the lot, or whether it be because they already obtained a variance or use some other mechanism in order to divide their property. In the 2016 hearing, it was determined that the variance, if approved, would not interfere with or injure the rights of others. Just one thing I skipped on the prior slide. The result of the lot split would not increase the number of occupants or traffic to or from the subject property. The Heath family and senior Mr. Heath do currently reside on the property, so it would just be so that way he can have his own space on the property in an already existing structure. Number 4, explain how the variance is in harmony with and serves the general intent and purpose of the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. So the variance will allow the property to be utilized in the same manner and have the same design flexibility as other properties in the area that, again, either have sufficient lot widths to do what we're trying to do without a variance, or that they've already obtained a lot split by utilizing a variance or some other mechanism. Additionally, the use of flag lots is specifically mentioned in the code as a way in this area to divide up the property. Here again, now we're going to cover the specific sections of the Land Development Code, but just pointing you to a specific section that governs this area, just identifying how unique it is as far as the structures and kind of development issues related to the layout of the area. So the Land Development Code provides a specific procedure for how to divide up the property. That's in that section 3.08.03. And 3.08.04 indicates that in order to provide design flexibility, a proposed single-family subdivision could reduce the lot sizes. So now covering 3.0805, which is the accordance with section, indicates that in this area, flag lots are a tool that could be used. And then with the pursuant to section, we've already gone through the pre-submittal conference, and at this point, we're seeking a variance to the front lot width so that we could go forward and do a certified parcel subdivision review with those parcels that we had shown you, one being 1 acre, one being 1.96, which is the flag. And in the 2016 hearing, that number 4, it was determined at that time for that specific variance request that it was in harmony and would serve the general intent of the area and the progressive development of unincorporated areas of Hillsborough County. Number 5, second to last, explain how the situation sought to be relieved by the variance does not result from an illegal act or result from the actions of the applicant. The applicant acquired the property in 2019, and the lot width has not been modified during the applicant's ownership of the property. Further, the boundary lines of the property were created prior to the enactment of the Land Development Code, and the applicants are seeking a variance in good faith to resolve the hardship in a manner that's consistent with the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. And then in the 2016 hearing, it was determined similarly that the applicant did not have any self-imposed hardship. Number 6, explain how the variance will result in substantial justice being done. So again, allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done, and failure to do so will result in individual hardships because the applicant will not be able to enjoy the property similar to the property owners in the area that either have lots wide enough to split without a variance, or those who have already used a variance or other mechanism to split their lots. Further, it would be consistent with the specific development standards for this area, which seek to provide design flexibility and specifically indicate that flag lots are a mechanism that could be used. And then I didn't cover side setback throughout because that's just one of our cleanup items, just the 0.3 feet, and was not really an integral part of the analysis. And then the 2016 hearing was determined similarly in that last sentence that the overall size of the property is consistently larger, and really the only thing that would result in not being able to split the lot right now is just the front lot width. And just our final slide just shows you the current before and after. As you can see, the after structure does not change the footprint, expand the footprint in any way. It's just to enclose that upstairs patio area and to enclose the garage area.
So, is that it before I interject my question?
That's it.
All right. To that very issue, the slide that was just up, you used the term was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an accessory structure, and what I didn't hear brought home, and I don't want to make the assumption that it's the case, but is this an issue about that accessory structure exceeding the allowable requirements in size for an accessory dwelling?
Correct. We would like it to become a main structure on the smaller lot. So that would be the main structure. It would no longer be an accessory structure. I just called it accessory structure to kind of indicate the difference between the smaller and the larger, but it would become the main structure on that smaller lot, and then the main house would remain the main structure.
And the Land Development Code provides some opportunities for variance to accessory dwellings, but it limits the maximum.
Correct. I think it was 1,400 square feet was the maximum, and we're seeking to, I think our square footage would become around 2,000.
And Tom, can you confirm if that's the case?
Yes, actually, what the code provides is generally an accessory dwelling is capped at 900 square feet. It does provide for a variance to be requested to go up to a maximum of 1,200 square feet or 25% of the living space in the principal dwelling, whichever is less. So essentially what you need is the principal dwelling has to have at least 3,600 square feet of floor space, and actually larger because 900 is 25% of 36. So the principal dwelling has to be larger than 3,600 square feet to be eligible for a variance.
Which is not the case here?
I'm sorry?
Which is not the case here.
I don't believe so. The applicant can confirm.
It's currently set for 2,000 square feet, but it could be increased to greater.
I think what Tom is referring to, can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, the size of the principal dwelling on the
The
property.
existing principal dwelling.
The existing principal dwelling on the property is how large?
Let me see, it's probably shown on the survey. Just give me one moment. I don't have it on the survey.
That's okay.
Approximately 4,000.
Okay, Tom, so that's 1,000.
That would be 1,000. If it's 4,000 square feet of living space, the principal, then they could request a variance to go up to 1,000 square feet in the accessory dwelling.
Up to 1,000 square feet.
Up to 1,000.
And here they're proposing a 2,000 square foot enclosure. Hence the need to go the route of a parcel certification,
Exactly.
parcel creation. All right. Okay, anything else?
That's all for now.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, anybody here today in support of this request? Anybody in support? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Grandoff.
Pardon me one moment. Or... Okay. Mr. Scarola, John Grandoff on rebuttal. Mr. Scarola, your charge is to consider competent substantial evidence this morning. This is no proof of a hardship. It's simply, I want 2 lots to put 2 homes in an ASC1 subdivision, an ASC1 zoning district, which is a rural zoning district, that are dramatically less than 150 feet of the required width, because I don't want to rezone. Because if they wanted to rezone or broader rezoning, which would be a PD, the neighbors could have input on the PD and the county commission could rule on that. I don't want to
be clear, the neighbors can have input today.
I'm not belaboring the procedural issue, but that would result in a spot zoning. You'd have a suburban zoning district in an ASC1 rural community that has clearly said that they want a rural community. They don't want 2 homes on what was formerly 1 lot.
There is 2 homes in the lot.
And they're expanding them and they're creating them with subpar width. The others that have them in the neighborhood are not binding precedent. That's classic law of variances. You cannot point down the street and say, well, he got one, now I get one. So that's not competent substantial evidence. The Robinsons purchased their property in reliance on the ASC1 zoning district. That is classic property. You buy your property in reliance upon the zonings adjacent to you being enforced, but for a rezoning. There are personal issues involved in this. I recognize those. My client is sympathetic to those. However, they do not justify a variance from the lot width. That is not competent substantial evidence. The law is classic in saying it has to be a condition of the land. It was not created by the owner, of which he was not on notice of when he purchased the property. What's the classic case? A water body impacting a rear yard setback. So I need a variance on the rear yard. A grand tree impacting a side yard setback. So I need a variance on the side yard. We have no quarrel with the side yard setback they want. I think they've met the requirement. It's a de minimis request. We're not objecting to that. That could be covered in a PD rezoning. There's no unique condition involved in this property. In the amended application response that the counsel for the applicant says, she admits that it does not meet the minimum lot requirements. She points to other property owners in the neighborhood, 3, 4, and 5. This is which was originally filed. Says, please see above. Please see above does not constitute competent substantial evidence. What she has provided to you this morning is simply a regurgitation of, we want it because we want it. So
Mr. Grandoff, let me ask you, you don't consider the lot line configuration, the geometric configuration of this parcel unique, creating the hardship particular to the property?
Absolutely unique. No question unique. So is my client's property is unique. That's what they bought. You can't come in and buy a piece of property that is unique and then say, you know what, I really like to have a subdivision here of 2 homes.
Can you point to your client's property?
We object. And
can you point to your client's property?
And we're adjacent to that, and we object to it.
Hold on, you said it's to the east, but you pointed to the south. Can you confirm that's to the south?
He's next door.
Come to the microphone.
I'm sorry.
And then confirm that it's to the south, not to the east.
I'm sorry, I was reading the.
That's all right, I just want to make sure.
Correctly. Yes. So in summary, there's no competent substantial evidence to justify the variance. Rather, this is information that would be properly held and considered by the Board of County Commissioners in a rezoning forum. We respectfully request that you issue a report denying the application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Granda. All right, is there anybody else today in opposition to the request? Anybody in opposition? Seeing none. Anything else from staff?
Colleen, any further comments?
No further comments.
One second.
Colleen? Okay, I guess not. No comments from staff.
Okay, now's your opportunity for rebuttal.
Hello, thank you. This is Kristen Mella on behalf of the applicant. Our rebuttal is that we have covered the 6 criteria further in depth in our PowerPoint, which is going to be submitted into the record. This is a hardship for our client. There are other properties in the area, which I can show you the aerial again, that are quite large and do meet that with that 150 feet requirement. This property was divided up prior to our client's ownership of the property, and due to its unique nature, is not able to comply with the front lot width requirement. So let me just bring that image up. So as you can see down the way, there are several properties that likely do meet with the 150-foot requirement. And then pointing out to the other flag lots was not an argument to say, look what the others are doing, but just showing that it's consistent with the general landscape of the area, and that, as pointed out in that specific section of the code which relates to this area, they do seek to provide some design flexibility to these property owners, including the use of flag lots, which is what we're seeking.
All right, is that it for your testimony?
That is it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we're going to close variance 2803. Tom?
All right, that concludes section G of the agenda. We'll now move to section H, which are our special uses. First case is item H1. Application number 20-0590. The applicant is Ryan Companies US Incorporated. They're requesting a special use for a charter school. Staff report and recommendation will be presented by Tanya Chapella following applicant's presentation.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Scarola. For the record, I'm Michael Horner, 14502 Northdale Mabry Highway, representing the applicant and owner Ryan Companies on this matter. It's fairly straightforward. I'll be brief. Mr. Scarola, we are not changing any cap to the students. We are not amending any building setbacks or buffer conditions. We represent the same access conditions, circulation plan. This is accommodating 2 requests. One is a reduction significantly on the building by about 18,000 square feet. This is our 3rd special use. We have finally determined that this is an appropriate footprint that will serve the best interests of this charter school. It was previously approved on the 2018 special use application for up to 90,000 square feet, including 80,000 square feet for the principal structure, and then a 10,000 square foot gymnasium. We are now reducing that principal structure size substantially down to 61,372 square feet and an 11,487 square foot gymnasium. We have parking being increased slightly. We are well over the required minimum, but their business pro forma plan requires additional parking be provided. I would note for the record, Mr. Scarola, this building has been constructed. It was just recently completed. We do have a temporary certificate of occupancy issued. So this approval will conform to the improvements and allow for those 2 changes to be recognized formally at site plan review. Appreciate working with staff. I don't believe we have any opposition. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Horner, just to be clear, what are the two changes?
The changes are reducing the building size from 80,000 square feet to 61,372 square feet. And then that also includes, or is in addition to, an 11,457 square foot gymnasium for a total gymnasium and the principal structure of 72,859 square feet. And the second change is to add additional parking to the northwest and to the south and southeast.
Okay, I think that's where I was a bit confused in reading the report. If you were just reducing the square footage of the school, there wouldn't have been an issue here, but the gymnasium is increased. And so I saw one change, but in a sense, you're saying the change of the total.
That's correct. As you know,
it's the second issue.
Yeah.
Does that sound right, Mr. Horner?
That's correct, Mr. Squirrel. As you know, in the special uses, whether you go up the ladder or down the ladder, any changes require a new special use application. So we are reducing the principal, but we are increasing the size of that gymnasium just slightly, and then adding the additional parking spaces to get to 275 spaces.
Mr. Horner, appreciate the testimony.
My pleasure.
Okay, is there anybody here today in support of this request? Seeing none?
Mr. Herrenhauser, are you going to hear from staff?
Oh, we're out of what, see what order does to me, Tom?
And then also I'd like to note that on this case and the next planning commission staff also renders comment. So after development services. So Tanya, would you present your report, please?
Sure. Tanya Chapella, Development Services. The request is for a special use permit for a charter school that is proposed for a 10-acre parcel on property zone agricultural rural. As proposed, the school will have a total of 1,450 students in grades kindergarten to 12. The subject school was originally granted special use approval through special use 17-0631 and most recently through special use 18-0576. The applicant is seeking to modify the approved building layout, reducing the total building area and adding parking spaces. Additionally, the applicant proposed to relocate an open playfield towards the northern property line. No changes are proposed to previously required buffering and operational conditions to promote compatibility with neighboring single-family homes to the north. Based on this consideration, the staff finds the outdoor playfields comply with the Land Development Code Section 61188B. Transportation staff does not object to the requested special use, subject to conditions, including the following items. A traffic monitoring report to be conducted and submitted by the developer, provisions for the arrival and dismissal schedule, access management and vehicle queuing, site access improvement required to be constructed by the developer, vehicular traffic and to and from the school restrictions. Additionally, the developer shall construct an access tube out to its southern property boundary. Bicycle and pedestrian access are also regulated. Special event parking shall be provided in accordance with the special use site plans, event parking plan, and vehicular circulation plan. Transportation staff is requesting a more detailed traffic circulation plan to be submitted as part of the final site plan submittal, which specifically shows the location of staff, monitoring and managing the pickups and drop-offs. There were no objections received from the reviewing agencies. Environmental Protection Commission staff reported no objections subject to the recommended conditions of approval found in this report. In my report, staff finds the proposed changes do not affect compatibility with the surrounding area relative to the previous special use approval. Based on the above findings, staff finds the request to be approvable subject to conditions. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the Planning Commission, please.
Mr. Herrenhauser, just to supplement one thing.
Sure.
With regards to the changes that drove the requirement, The code says if there's any changes to the approved plan for a special use, you have to go through the special use process again. It does not provide for modification like in the PD process. So in addition to the increase in the size of the gymnasium, which had been called out in the previous approval, the other thing that drove this is relocation of, they provided additional parking. And if you compare this site plan with the previously approved one, you'll see that the Q lane makes a big loop on the east end of the property. They're now having parking on part of that loop, which was not previously there. And then they added a few extra parking spaces on the west end of the site. But the addition, so that's the other change that actually drove the requirement for this new special use.
And Tom, as long as you hit on the subject, I think I recall reading on this that, so they're having to commit to two queuing cycles for loading and unloading.
Yes.
That was also a condition of the previous?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Special use. Okay. All right, thanks, Tom. And the planning commission, please.
Thank you. For the record, Melissa Lionheart, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 4 future land use category. It is in the urban service area, and the subject property is located within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The applicant is requesting approval of a special use to accommodate a charter school for up to 1,450 students. The site has been previously approved for a similarly sized K-12 charter school under the application Special Use 18-0576. The proposed site plan includes an internal pedestrian connection from the sidewalk along US Highway 301 to the school building, which is consistent with Objective 10-1 and Policy 10-1.5 of the community design component of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. Additionally, the proposed use is consistent with the vision of the Riverview Community Plan's policies with regard to safe pedestrian connections. Churches, schools, and daycare centers are defined as residential support uses by the comprehensive plan. These uses are allowable uses in residential land use categories, so long as their intensity and design is compatible with the surrounding land uses. The site will preserve the previous conditions from Special Use 18-576 with regard to buffering and screening to help mitigate any impacts to the surrounding residential uses. The proposed special use is compatible with the surrounding development pattern as the subject property is surrounded by scattered residential uses. Based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed special use consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, and that's subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. So having said that, is there anybody here today in support of this request? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the request? No. Anything else from the applicant?
No further comments, Mr. Scarola. We accept all the conditions of staff, and I certainly accept the additional comments by Mr. Hisney. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. With that, we'll close special use 20-0590.
Our final case today is item H2, special use application 20-0607. The applicant is Peter Sudler. The request is a special use permit for a land excavation. Staff findings will be presented by Colleen Marshall.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's actually afternoon slightly.
It's
and I'm the
snuck
only
up on
thing
me.
between everyone else in the room and lunch, so I will try to be brief. Just waiting for the PowerPoint. Cami Corbett, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 3700, here representing the applicant, which is actually the Sudler Companies. And do that in just a moment. Do I drive from here? Up and down button. All right. We did that part already. Okay, the location of the subject property is out in East County. It is south of I-4, north of US Highway 92, and it is bounded on the east by County Line Road, and on the other side is Park Road. It is also adjacent to an existing PD. You'll see it labeled on that exhibit as Eastland Industrial. That's an existing PD inside the limits of the city of Plant City, and it's entitled for 3 million square feet of industrial uses. This request is limited in its purpose. The sole purpose of it is for land excavation for fill material for that adjacent PD. It's limited in volume to 285,000 cubic yards. It's limited in duration to 2 years. We think we'll be done even sooner than that, but we wanted to give ourselves the 2 years to address any delays that might occur. We are having limited use of the roadways. We are going direct over to the PD. And then the reclamation plan is just simply for lake creation. We do require 2 waivers, one for access and one for distance separation from residential uses. Development Services has reviewed our application, including the request for waivers, and has determined that it is approvable, subject to conditions, and we have no objections from reviewing agencies. Likewise, the Planning Commission has found it consistent with a comprehensive plan and compatible with the surrounding area.
You just screw up your PowerPoint presentation, but I want to clear up the record really quick on something. I heard you say the industrial site was to the east.
Oh, yes, to the west.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I misspoke.
That's all right.
Yes, it's definitely to the west.
Go right ahead.
Just wait for the PowerPoint to come back up. Right. This is the waiver criteria. You're familiar with the waiver criteria. Essentially, it can be waived when any of these conditions are met, whether they impose a burden due to shape or condition of parcel, whether the strict enforcement would create practical difficulties and the waiver is not merely for convenience, or proof that no objection is provided from affected property owners. You'll also be looking into the location and size of the excavation, the depth of the lakes and the cubic yards to be excavated, the proximity of the excavation to environmentally sensitive areas, and then conditions to mitigate against effects of the waiver. We'll start with the access waiver. You'll see the access circled in yellow. The access point is designated on the site plan directly to the haul road, directly across Wiggins Road onto the Eastland Industrial property. This is just going to be a temporary access. This is not an actual access point to the PD. This will be a temporary access permitted by the city of Plant City for purposes of this land excavation. And you'll note that staff has limited to this access only. No truck traffic will be allowed north or south on Wiggins Road, and any damage to the road must be repaired. Moving on to the distance separation waiver, you'll see that we did the best that we could with the site. The site does have significant wetlands on the east and to the south, and then that forces that additional wetland buffer, which does nudge that excavation area a little bit north and a little bit west. We have requested the minimum, absolute minimum necessary to allow us to complete the project. You'll see to the north where we're asking for a waiver down to 150 feet. There's a significant wooded natural buffer area there, and that's on the site plan, and that will remain. And then also to the south, where we're asking the reduction from 500 to 318, there's another wooded buffer there that's natural and will remain. And then where those natural buffers are not existing, staff is recommending, and we agree to, opaque screening 6 feet in height, 50 feet from the property line, the length of Wiggins, and then also up in that northern property where the vegetation doesn't exist. We have also agreed to reduce days and hours of operations, Monday through Friday only, no holidays, and then 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then also the yellow check marks represent letters from owners, surrounding owners who have no objection letters filed in the record. We have also been in contact with the other residents, and although they elected not to provide a letter into the record, we have not heard of any significant objections from them, and I don't know, as far as I know, there were no parties of record that raised an objection. And so we think that the mitigation of the buffering and screening and the limited days and hours of operation justify the waiver, and also to give you a bigger picture, long-term, Sudler has actually filed a plan amendment and a PD to acquire those 2 parcels on Wiggins Road just to the south of the haul route. And that plan amendment is in processing, and it will become, and then we'll have a companion rezoning. And that property is actually going to be used for ponds. And this is the overall vision for Southern Oaks Business Park. And you'll see that the actual land excavation will become a lake that provides a nice buffer between the more intense industrial to the west, which is in the I-4 Green Tech corridor for the city of Plant City. And all of the traffic from the industrial will be oriented to Charlie Taylor Road, which is that roadway splitting the east and west parcel, which has significant improvements that are required associated with the development. And in summary, the proposed application is consistent with the comprehensive plan, the land development code, and is compatible with the surrounding area. And I think the waiver criteria have been satisfied and justified. And I'm here to answer any questions. We have our whole team, well, part of our team is here. We have our transportation staff here, and I believe our civil engineer and the property owner are appearing virtually should you have any questions.
Okay, I'm good for right now, but thank you. And Development Services.
Colleen Marshall, Development Services. The applicant stated the request is for a special use for land excavation to allow the removal of 285,000 cubic yards of material over a 2-year period that will result in the creation of a lake. The proposed excavation is located on the east side of Wiggins Road, south of Gent Avenue. There's residentially developed property to the north, south, and east and west of the subject site. The applicant is requesting a waiver to reduce the required distance separation to residentially developed property to 150 feet to the north, 318 feet to the south, 397 feet to the east, and 200 feet to the west. For the reasons contained in the staff report, staff has no objection to the proposed distance separation waiver. The applicant has agreed to limit the proposed hours of operation to 7 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, excluding holidays, to lessen the impacts on surrounding properties. The proposed excavation, I'm sorry about that. Not sure if you can hear the dog. The proposed excavation will meet the fencing requirements found in the LDC section 61154B7. I apologize if you can give me 1 second. I'm going to just. Sorry about that. Additionally, the applicant has agreed to provide a 6-foot solid fence, wood PVC fence, or chain link fence with privacy slats along Wiggins Road, set back 50 feet from the property line, and a solid wood or PVC fence along the northern property boundary from the 50-foot front setback to the wooded buffer area. The applicant's requesting a waiver to allow access on a local road, Wiggins Road. The access driveway for haul trucks will be located along the western boundary of the site. Loaded haul trucks will be limited to crossing North Wiggins Road to deliver material to the industrial project and will not be permitted to travel north or south along North Wiggins Road. Loaded haul trucks will be permitted to cross Charlie Taylor Road and travel along the road for purposes related to the roadway improvements and will otherwise be permitted to travel north or south along Charlie Taylor Road. Empty haul trucks will approach the excavation site in accordance with the Hillsborough County truck route plan. Given the limited duration and scope of the proposed excavation, staff does not object to the proposed waiver. Staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
But thank you very much, Colleen. And the Planning Commission, please.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the Residential 1 Future Land Use category. It is in the rural area, and the subject property is not located within the limits of a community plan. The applicant is requesting a land excavation for approximately 285,000 cubic yards of material on approximately 12.73 acre site. The applicant's special use request is consistent with the policies, goals, and objectives of the conservation and aquifer recharge element of the comprehensive plan, ensuring that the land excavation is appropriately reclaimed. Waivers to allow the proposed excavation within 500 feet of residentially developed or zoned properties are requested. The comprehensive plan requires setbacks between land excavations and adjacent property land uses to protect for the public health, safety, and welfare. And this is per policy 11.6 of the conservation and aquifer recharge element. The applicant has agreed to several conditions in order to mitigate potential impacts to the surrounding area. A minimum 70-foot wide buffer is required to be provided along the northern property boundary as shown on the site plan outside of the wetland area. The applicant has agreed to limit the proposed hours of operation to 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, excluding holidays recognized by Hillsborough County to lessen potential impacts on surrounding residential properties. Overall, the proposed special use is consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated County and is also compatible with the surrounding development pattern. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed special use consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And is there anybody here today in support of this request? Okay, seeing nobody in support, is there anybody in opposition to this request? None? Anything else from staff, Tom?
No, sir.
Okay, Ms. Corbett, one quick question. And you're welcome to, of course, rebuttal. But the question is, but for Wiggins Road crossing, would this have even been a land excavation request if it was on site?
It was Kami Corbett for the record. If what was on site?
If the excavation?
If the excavation was on site, there's no proposed excavation approved in the PD, and there's no proposed excavation. So we're digging stormwater ponds, but this is additional fill material that needs to be brought in to develop the site.
I guess my point is simply that if you were obtaining the material from on site, it would not have been a land excavation. It would have been, it would have been on-site excavation. Right?
Correct.
The only thing between you and the site is Wiggins Road.
Correct.
So that's my point. But for Wiggins Road, this would not have been land excavation.
Correct.
Anything else to add to the record?
I do not have anything else to add.
All right, thank you. That will close special use 20-0607, and I think that'll do it for our morning session. Thank you, everybody.